Good morning, Kate.
Hi, Cheryl. How are you doing?
Really well, thank you. So today we decided that we're going to talk about the pros and cons of Ozempic and how that plays into someone with an addiction to food. I know that you and I have both watched extensive videos featuring information about Ozempic. We've read a tremendous amount. And of course, there are, various opinions about Ozempic, and we felt that having a discussion about that might be of interest to our viewers.
Absolutely. And can I
Yeah.
firstly say how good it feels to be back? This is kind of like
Yes.
a season two, isn't it? I know both you and I have been really busy working with our coaching clients one-on-one and in the little group supports that we do around things. But it's just really good to carve out the time just to take a deeper dive into some of these more extensive topics and just see what we can come up with together, because increasingly I am seeing people coming in for coaching who are using these weight loss drugs to actually create the results that they want in terms
Mhm.
of losing the excess adipose tissue, losing the fat, losing the body weight, but also coming up against a point where they're realizing that perhaps they do need to make some lifestyle changes or deal with things in a slightly broader perspective. And that's where people who are taking these drugs are coming through my doorway and presenting themselves, and where we can really look to work with people to create sustainable, lasting change. So,
Yeah, I
um,
think, sorry, I was just going to say, I think that you make a really good point. People go on these medications, but they are really not equipped for lifestyle changes. The doctors are quick to dispense the drugs like Ozempic and Mounjaro and the others, without actually having a really deep conversation with their clients. Where are they psychologically? Are they able to make the lifestyle changes that should come with taking a medication like that?
mhm. One thing I think I deeply understand and have experienced and really resonate with is this concept of, I'm going to call it desperation. What brings you to the point where you decide you have to make a change, and where you have reached that point time and time and time and time again, over and over, making, bargaining with yourself that you're going to start again and try a different thing. That utter point of desperation, where people are now offered the opportunity to take this weight loss drug as a remedy that will really help them resolve all the problems that go along with intense cravings, all the sort of obsessional food thoughts, and noise that goes along with eating, and what can be really problematic and challenging for us when we're looking to make changes to our lifestyle and how we feel about our bodies. I know that there's a lot of pluses on taking this medication, and I wondered if you could share some of your thoughts around that.
You know, I understand the desperation behind people wanting to do this. And I will come clean. I tried it myself for 3 months because I feel that I should, if I'm going to be helping my clients, I should experience what they're experiencing. I mean, I've experienced everything else that they're experiencing, but I had never considered taking a drug like Ozempic. But I talked with my doctor of obesity medicine who understands Ozempic and the role that it can play in someone's life, and decided that, yeah, okay, let's do this as an experiment, and you can, keep notes for yourself. And it just turns out that it didn't work for me. Now, I didn't have any of the side effects, but it also did not help me lose any weight. And so, my experience might be different from someone else's. But I understand the desperation. I understand, what I hear my clients, just like you, when they come into my practice, one of the first things that they want to talk about is, is it possible that I could go on Ozempic? And, of course, anything's possible, but I'm, it's not that I'm against Ozempic, because I think that there's a place for Ozempic. Definitely, if you suffer from severe diabetes, or you are morbidly obese and your life is in danger and your weight has to come off very quickly, then definitely. But you can't, I mean, some people I talk to that I know, personal friends who are on Ozempic, I ask them candidly, what happens when you come off of it? And they go, "Oh, I'm going to be on it forever." And I think, well, that's great because you can afford it. So what happens to the people that can't afford it and they come off? Is what happens to them? Anyways, I don't think that I answered your question because I just went off on this tangent.
Well, no, it's not about answering questions because I think we're really like trying to look round the whole, the box, really look outside the box and look all around it for the pros and cons. Because, as you're saying, it does it does resolve these issues. And I've heard reports that it does resolve the cravings, obviously, and it lowers your appetite. You lose the weight, you lose a huge amount of body weight. It does deliver the results that you want, full
Mhm.
stop. However, with a capital H, there's other things that I think one needs to be fully informed about and understand before diving in. Not that I want us to recreate this as the dark side of weight loss drugs or anything like that, but
No.
there is another alternative and competing side around that I think is valid. The first of which, just to throw it open as a topic of discussion, is this concept of the sort of normalization of medication. So this
Yes.
idea that of taking a pill to resolve an issue that perhaps is fundamentally a lifestyle problem, a chronic
Mhm.
condition, as opposed to anything else. And I would perhaps also in the same breath talk about medications for high blood pressure, which people view as being normalized. You have high blood pressure, take a pill and it resolves the issue.
Right.
But really underneath that, why is nobody asking, well, why do you have high blood pressure? And
Right.
exploring that. I don't know if you've any views on that as a topic.
Well, yeah, this is a great observation. Absolutely. It's the same as when someone is diagnosed with being pre-diabetic and they're put on metformin. That I don't believe that doctors are even asking their patients, what are you eating? Let's address what is going in your body that is causing your blood sugar to go up. Let's address what's going on with why your blood pressure is going up. Let's address why you have become overweight.
Mhm.
And if all you're doing is taking Ozempic to lose 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds, let's try something else. We know that people have tried everything, but one of the things that people don't look at when trying to lose weight is understanding why they keep going back to the food. Why
Mhm.
is it that there's this perpetual yo-yo cycle? And so then we have to address the mental aspect of it. We have to think about, well, is this maybe an addiction? And if that's the case, then dealing with an addiction is a completely different process than just managing to eat less and exercise more or to take a pill.
And
It's a
that's
lot of work.
exactly it. And to be honest, my backstory, and I know a little of your backstory as well, is of yo-yo dieting, up and down, up and down, up and down, until the point, 3.5, 4 years ago, when it actually became obvious, and I had a diagnostic assessment that told me actually I was treating the wrong disease, that I had an
Mhm.
addiction to sugar and ultra-processed food. I had never in all my life considered that as a possibility, that I was struggling with a substance use disorder.
Right.
It never even occurred to me. Nobody explained. I suppose nobody knew it. I don't know what it was, but I didn't know. And only when I started to address the challenges that I had in the framework and context of an addiction did I start to make a difference and to understand that actually there was an answer,
Yeah.
and it wasn't in taking the next quick fix type remedy or pill that would make a difference. And so yes, this will, taking these medications, these weight loss drugs, will deliver you the results you want in terms of body size. But what are you telling the world? What are you saying? That you're not acceptable as a person at a different size, that there's
Yeah.
nothing of value in there at a different
Right.
size?
Right.
What have you learned from that experience?
Right.
I
Yeah.
question that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then of course, what happens when you stop the medication? I took some notes from a video that I watched with between Ben Bickman and Zoe Harcum, two people that I highly respect. And like we both said, as Ozempic does lead to significant amount of weight loss, usually about, I don't know, 15% or more reduction in body weight. But what's really interesting, it's not just the fat that we're losing, but we're losing lean mass. We're losing, um, you know, muscle tissue. And what I found jaw dropping, when I heard this, I was just gobsmacked, is that some GLP-1 receptor agonists have been shown, and I'm going to read my notes here. Um, some GLP-1 receptor agonists have been shown to activate a protein that plays a key role in the formation of new fat cells. So you already have fat cells. Now you're going to develop some new ones. Joy. So this raises concerns about potential long-term effects because if a patient stops taking the medication and regains weight, the newly formed fat cells will fill up, and that will lead to a higher body fat percentage than when you started out. So the combination of muscle loss during the Ozempic treatment and the formation of these new fat cells, and that could really mess up your body composition. Um, when you come off the medication, it will make you literally fatter. You will have more fat percentage on your body than lean muscle mass. And I think not very many people talk about that.
No, they don't. And actually, so it's saying you have lost the weight. And even if you put some of the weight back on, you're still not as high in weight in terms of weight as you were before you started the drug. However, and this is the point,
Yeah.
your body composition, that is the percentage of body fat you will now be storing in your body, will be much higher than it
Right.
was before because of the reason that you just explained. And I think
Right.
that, understand what that means. Um,
Exactly, because now that leaves you very vulnerable to all the diseases that we are already taking medications for. And we're looking at type 2 diabetes, we're looking at high blood pressure again, we're
mhm,
looking at
mhm,
cardiovascular problems.
mhm,
So you're
mhm.
not really solving a problem. You're just looking thinner. It's like
Yeah, but
putting moisturizer on your skin. The wrinkles are still there. They just look a little bit better.
I know it's a toss up, isn't it? Because I remember times when I would have done anything. I would have prayed and prayed and prayed for a miracle pill that would
Mhm.
cause that. I just, you know, I don't actually believe it exists. And I still don't actually believe that what we're presenting with at the moment exists in terms of a miracle cure. You know, things that spring to mind that concern me is this sort of concept of escaping reality. And in a sense, could we see those weight loss drugs as another form of drug abuse in the
Mm,
sense you're not actually dealing with any of the root cause problems or the lifestyle choices or anything that led you up to the point of being where you are, but you're now taking a drug to help you escape from the reality of your situation, to numb what you're experiencing, and to deliver the results that you really believe are going to make a difference to
mhm.
your life. So
Yeah.
that concept of medicating to avoid painful reality, do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, we've medicated our way to being overweight. So most of us use food for medication. Some people use alcohol to self-medicate. And I think, I mean, it's slightly different, but it's still this escapism. It's still not dealing with the reality that, I may have a food addiction problem,
Mhm,
and this medication is going to address just one part of it.
mhm,
So could we use medications like Ozempic as a starting place for someone who's very large to give them a little traction to lose weight? Yes, but as a long-term medication, I don't think that it's a good idea at all. Because, like you said, we're not addressing the underpinnings of why we are eating the way that we're eating.
mhm. That's right. You're not dealing with the addiction, you're dealing with
Right.
some of the external extraneous the symptoms that have come along with the
Exactly.
addiction, the cravings, the obsessive food thought. And
That's right.
actually, that's hugely beneficial. I'm not here to knock these weight loss drugs, and I really encourage people to do their own research and to make
Oh,
their own decisions
absolutely.
around that. But I
Hmm.
just really want to think as wide as possible around the box of what's possible around that. And to me, there still exists the fundamental that if you're all you're experiencing is an appetite reduction, what have you done to change? What have you done to change who you are and what you are and what's caused
Right.
the initial problems? I mean, that's point one. Also, I'm going to say, dare I raise this as an issue? But there's a whole, across the whole spectrum of people's relationships with food, there's what I would consider a whole sort of subset of vulnerable users or at-risk users, and that's people who are struggling with conditions like anorexia or
Hmm.
bulimia or binge eating disorders, who are going to find these drugs really, really appealing as a way to exert extreme control over their weight. And that scares me, actually. You don't actually have to do very much to be able to obtain these drugs. It's very easy to lie on the forms and, to present false information as to why you should be prescribed these drugs. And given that eating disorders, binge eating disorders, anorexia, all of the rest of them have some of the highest mortality rates going, and that is a huge concern to me, that how just the vulnerability of a proportion of this community and
Yeah.
how vulnerable they might well be to these weight loss drugs.
Yeah. Well said. Absolutely well said. Going back to this appetite reduction comment and 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 me telling you that I tried the Ozempic. One of the great ways to have appetite reduction, of course, is to follow a low carbohydrate diet to reduce anything that, reduces the cravings for sugar and processed foods and carbs. So when I tried Ozempic, we have to remember that I was already eating a very low carbohydrate diet. So
Mhm.
for me, when I went on Ozempic, there was no appetite reduction because I was already there. I was not eating triggering foods. I was not eating like that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that before trying Ozempic, you know, it might be more prudent to try a very low carbohydrate diet, a ketogenic diet, and see how you feel about those appetite suppressing qualities of that diet. But I can tell you that it's far easier to take the medication. I'm not saying that it's an easy decision, but
Mm.
it's far easier to inject yourself than to do meal planning and to cut out those noisy foods, those foods that
Mhm.
do trigger cravings and addictive behaviors.
And I hear you, and that's how society is actually constructed, isn't it? Quick
Hmm.
fixes, instant gratification, and really that's at the heart of the problem that got me into the situation in the beginning around the addiction piece, isn't it?
Of
Those
course,
instant
yes.
quick, instant gratification, and all the rest of it. And I hear what you're saying loud and clear. There are ways to really stimulate the GLP-1 production without actually taking drugs, which is what you're saying and what you've done.
Right.
So that's things like certain foods. I know there's a huge amount of interest in the moment in allulose, um,
Yeah.
as as a possibility, but also things like fermented foods, protein-rich foods, some fiber-dense vegetables, those green leafy vegetables, the cruciferous
Hmm.
vegetables and stuff, all of which can enhance natural GLP-1 production without actually taking a drug. So,
Yes.
exploring those as an alternative without actually going for your quick fix pill and taking the drug and things like exercise as well, resistance training, they all really enhance insulin sensitivity and are really going to help your basic metabolic health. And this is where we start to gain traction and make changes. So yeah, that's a great point. I really
Hmm.
hear what you're saying
Hmm.
about
Yeah.
carb diets.
So
Because
yeah.
also what can happen is you still end up eating the crap that you were eating before. You're just eating smaller portions,
So
Pardon
so
my
okay, so
French.
so let's talk about that because I've been privy to people in my life who are on this medication and they are still eating the same crap, only a smaller portion. So now, in the first instance, they weren't eating food that was very nutritionally dense, right? Now they eat less of it. So whatever little bit of nutrition there was in what they were eating before, now they have even less of it, right? So even if a person eats really well while they're on Ozempic, the portions that they are able to eat are so small. Where are the vitamins coming from? Where are the nutrients? Where are the minerals coming from in those quantities?
Mhm.
You're thin. You're not necessarily healthy.
Mhm. And you
Your
can
body is going to
be
rebound.
fat, you can be overweight and carrying all this that won't be starving nutritionally as well. Can't you be so
Exactly.
malnourished really in what you're doing?
Exactly. Exactly. I was with a friend and we went through a drive-through. We have in Canada here, Tim Hortons. I think it's Dunkin' Donuts in the US. But anyways, one of those fast food coffee places. And I was in the back seat. I ordered a black tea, and the person who's on the Ozempic ordered a donut and a sandwich and a coffee with sugar in it. And she only ate a little bit.
Yeah,
Wow.
and I hear you. And that was so funny. Um, just segueing to another topic, Oprah
Yeah.
Winfrey, and we could talk for hours about her, but
Yeah.
really
Yeah. Yeah.
interesting. I saw her on one of her specials talking about Ozempic or whatever drug that she takes around that. And she said, yeah, I still eat the bagel. You got to have the bagel, And I thought, okay, oh, okay, whoop, whoop, alarm, what's going on here around that? But, she's such an interesting lady. Um, Perhaps some people regard Oprah as being like the poster child, the poster girl for every quick fix, skinny girl, instant weight loss potion from OptiFast in the 1980s. I think she brought into Weight Watchers.
Weight
And now,
Watchers. Yeah.
yeah, that's right.
Now
And
it's
now she's
Ozempic.
into
That's right.
the
Yeah.
weight loss drugs and all the rest of
Yeah.
it. This celebrity endorsement around this product is just overwhelming, isn't it? It's the
Yeah.
latest craze, the latest fad thing, and you know it if you're not taking it and not doing it,
That's
just to
right.
lose those 10 pounds and all the rest of it. These
Right.
medications are not created for that. They began as
Right.
anti-diabetes drugs
Right.
around that, which a side effect was that you would lose weight. And then,
Yeah.
of course, because of this weight loss implication, new patents were developed,
Can you
and the
imagine?
money, cash registers
Yeah. Ka-ching, ka-ching,
flowing in.
ka-ching.
But
Yeah.
there's a point there about saying to people to follow the money. And I know you and I was furious when I found this out. And I know I touched on this last week when we were talking about this subject. But Oprah had done a two-part podcast special with some expert from Yale University Weight Management Center called Dr. Anya Jastreboff, and both of them advocating the use of weight loss drugs and how fantastic they were. There was no counter or no exploration like we're doing round the box, round the edges of these drugs. And the expert, the medical expert, was really advocating their use, and they wheeled on a load of people who had huge success in losing the weight. We're now finding, particularly one really poignant example of a rather large mother with her daughter who had lost a lot of weight and was now being accepted into the cheerleading team at school,
Yes, I remember that story. Yeah.
much to the delight of her mother and the studio audience. So all thought, and so am I, and so am I, really around
Yeah.
that. But my point is this just absolute enthusiasm for the normalization of taking a pill for what is a lifestyle issue fundamentally, but also just this glowing, one-sided, all-pervasive view of the weight loss drug. I thought it was strange at the time. And then I decided to look up this medical expert, Dr. Anya Jastreboff. And who knew? She'd been accepting money from Novo Nordisk, who are the manufacturers of these weight loss drugs in Denmark, since 2014, in the way, hundreds of thousands of dollars in terms of consulting fees. So she's
Hmm.
being paid by Novo Nordisk to consultancy fees for funding her research and the work that she's doing. Is it any wonder that she then appears on Oprah's program extolling the virtues of these drugs? Now, okay, everybody makes their own choices, but come on, as viewing public, shouldn't we be given the chance to actually have a disclaimer or an understanding? Actually, Dr. Jastreboff accepts money from the
Right.
manufacturers of this drug. Make your
Right.
own decisions based on that.
At no point did that come across the screen.
No, as if,
No.
which then makes me ask, okay, so what's going on here? Did Oprah know? Did she not know? Does she know? And is it, all sorts of questions around that. What is going
Also,
on? Is she
and
being paid?
and then yeah, then you're okay. If this one's being paid, is Oprah being paid for saying these things? So yeah, it casts yeah, suspicious light on things. Yeah.
What I'm saying is fundamentally, and I know this was an expression that Dr. Ben Bickman used in that interview that you're talking about. To me, enthusiasm is outweighing the evidence of these drugs. So all this absolute craziness in the social media, the mainstream media, anecdotal stories, people saying, yeah, don't I look fantastic? I'm ready for my, it's just, it's almost like too much because the evidence, the long-term evidence isn't there. I mean, what do we know about the long-term outcomes of
Right,
this drug?
right. Well, we know the long-term outcomes when it's used for diabetes. We don't know the long-term outcomes when it's used strictly for weight loss. And of course, these new dosages now and these new products off the back of Ozempic, I mean, they are much stronger, and the side effects. The, that's the other thing too with with these drugs. The side effects are pretty severe and pretty dangerous. So it's not like you just take the pill and said, or you just take the shot and the weight comes off. There are um, digestive issues. There are I don't there's a list of them, which I don't want to talk out of turn. I don't have that list in front of me, but it's not innocent at all. Um, you know, Ben Bickman says that you know he just he was saying that the after, like, going back to what happens when you come off this medication, he was saying that when the symptoms return, um, patients report that food cravings return on a big scale. Um, and it's just like, when if you quit drinking alcohol and you don't drink for 10 years and then you have a first drink, you're going to really feel it. And then you're going to escalate your drinking very, very quickly because you're going to want to re-experience that fantastic feeling. So it's the same thing with um, coming off Ozempic. When you come off it and you start eating the way that you used to eat, it's going to be an avalanche. The cravings are going to be intolerable.
Mhm.
And Ozempic, interferes with natural hunger signals. So you haven't really learned anything about your hunger, your true hunger. It just absolutely suppresses the effects. Like it just interferes with learning to recognize your natural hunger and fullness cues. So you're coming off these drugs and you're not equipped. There's the doctors haven't prepared you for what you should do while you're on it, and they certainly haven't prepared you for what happens when you come off of it. And I
Mhm.
think it's going to be extremely important um, that people do their homework. Don't just get all excited and go on this medication and think it's easy street. It's not. It's
Mhm.
not. And I do know that making the decision to go on this drug is not an easy one
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
there's a big financial commitment.
Mhm.
I mean, a lot of people know that there are side effects, but there's always that part that, it's not going to happen to me
Mhm.
uh, mentality. But yeah, do your homework. It's not just about, exercise and eat less. Look at the type of food that you're eating that's causing you to have these issues in the first place and make changes there. Start there.
Mhm. And I would also say, well, a couple of points just in response to you. Get a diagnostic. You and I both run sugar evaluations, which will tell you once and for all whether what you're up against is a food addiction. And we have strategies and techniques that can guide you into recovery, that we work on day in, day out, that will really help you in a long-term sustainable recovery that's going to
Mhm.
make you feel amazing.
Yeah.
One day at a time, yes. But look, with these weight loss drugs, aside from the cost commitment that you mentioned, there are other things to bear in mind. So you've a chunk of people that I've spoken to, I know you're taking these weight loss drugs, and say, well, I'm never coming off it.
Mhm.
And great, but then there's research in the UK. I think they took a cohort of patients, 578 patients, I think they were, who were taking this drug.
Well,
And within 12 months, 45% had stopped taking it. And within 2 years, 65% had stopped taking this drug, not just for cost commitment, but because they couldn't actually cope with the side effects, they were sick to death of feeling sick, basically, within that. But also noticing that as well as knocking on the head the cravings and everything that went along with that, after 2 years, actually they were beginning to experience that passion had gone out of their life. So there was a numbing, a flatlining of other experiences. You know, the joy that we get for standing in nature, feeling the fresh air on our skin and the passion for life, the enthusiasm was going at 2 years. And so they found they couldn't, even though they might have wanted to because of the effects that it was having on the body, actually physically it was not possible for them to do that. And that's a published study telling you 65% had to stop taking the drug after 2 years. So that tactic saying, well, I'm going to stay on this for the rest of my life, yeah, have that as a back pocket option. But are you going to be one of the 65% or one of the 35%? What happens in terms of the cost commitment? You lose your job. You know, the insurance doesn't pay for it. You have to find the however many hundreds of pounds it is a month to do that. Increased dosage, is that going to cost more to maintain the same effects around that? And also one thing to throw into the mix as well, there's some sort of ethical dilemma that there have been sort of shortages of supply of this drug. And so you're in effect taking it away from the people who actually need the drug in terms of the type 2 diabetes, that whole community who actually rely on this medication to make a difference in their life. So that, just more things to throw into the mix.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Absolutely. Absolutely. I did have a point that I want to make, and now I've forgotten it. Oh well, come back.
Yeah, well, it
Oh yes,
always.
but Mike, actually, I do have a question. So
Hmm.
of the group of people who were experiencing this flat lining, this mood
Mhm.
alteration, so are they suggesting then, and I'm not trying to be funny here, but are they suggesting that taking this medication is affecting your dopamine levels and your serotonin in terms of your mental health?
That's a great question, and I don't know. I don't
Okay.
have the answer
Or
to.
is
I
it
don't
just because
have
they
the answer to
just don't
that.
feel very well that they're not very
Well,
passionate about
something's
anything, I
going
guess?
on up here, isn't it? That's taking the
Yeah.
edge off your passion and your experience. And it kind of makes sense to me in the sense that you flatlined out on your cravings and that's all numbed out and you're not experiencing that anymore. But
Right.
over time, why wouldn't that also have the effect on those other parts of, those other parts of the brain
Neurotransmitters and yeah.
processes and transmitters, neurotransmitters or whatever,
Yeah.
around that. I'm not, some of this goes really deep. I'm not
Yeah.
like a brain expert on all the rest of it. I don't know. I'm just reporting the results from this test. And we'll put some of these published paper details actually in the comments section. And also I suggest we put that thing with the interview with Ben Bickman and Zoe Harcombe, because that was so useful actually to listen
Yeah.
to. It's a really
Absolutely.
great.
Yes, because they are, yeah, they're very articulate and they explain things scientifically and then they break it down so that it's manageable for the rest of us who are not scientists.
Exactly. Those of
Right.
us who do more sort of, I don't know, lateral thinking around around stuff and which we have a depth of knowledge and understanding
Right.
around that. But what we do have as women is lived experience of this.
Yes.
We
Yes.
have so much lived experience of what it is like to exist with an addiction to sugar and ultra processed food and ways of overcoming and learning to create a life around this
Yeah.
disease that is
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
so different to
Yep.
those years we spent locked in.
Yeah. And we know what it's like to live in a large body.
Yeah, for
You know,
sure.
in
I
a very
know.
large body. Yeah. I mean, I have been larger than this, I'm a work in progress, but I'm telling you, doing it this way with, dealing with the addiction, changing the way that you eat, it's it's something that you feel so good about and you feel so proud of yourself. You've accomplished something, you're living your life, you have experiences, you're not numbing out, it's just I wouldn't trade this for anything.
No, and also when you take a pill, you're giving your power away. What you're describing to me is that sense of empowerment, that sense of standing up in your own 2 feet, feet on the ground. This is me, this is Cheryl, this is Kate, this is me. I'm not reliant, as I have been for all my life, on some external substance giving me permission to be me. You know,
Right.
there's techniques, there's knowledge, there's understanding. The approach to recovery from addiction is biopsychosocial and spiritual. And it takes time. It isn't an instant fix, but it becomes a way of life. And that's the power and the glory. Can I say that? I don't know. And I'm
Yes.
going to throw this in as well because I hate this about. I'm trying to stay unbiased, that I'm not anti-weight loss doctors. I'm not, because I can see there is a place for them. But what we have, or what we're creating even more of, and where I find pain, is this sense of a binary world, that you're either fat or overweight or you're thin. When the reality of being a human being is there is a huge variety and spectrum of human life, all different sizes. You are not invalid as a person if you're carrying extra weight or you have a different body shape to somebody else. But this insistence on taking a pill to become thin, to slim, to lose the excess weight, this creation of a binary world feeds so much into this notion and concept of algorithms in social media. You're either in part of this group or you're not. You're either this or that. And life is not like that. And the more we're being funneled into this way of existing, the more narrower our experience of life. Whereas I just find it the most extraordinary gift to be alive and to
Mm.
be walking this earth at this time, and to be gifted everything that we get to explore through being alive. You know, that push towards a binary world is very, very painful to me. And yeah, just wanted to
No,
point
I
that.
agree. I agree. I mean, when we're told all the time that the only way to have a beautiful, purposeful life is to look a certain way, right? I mean, how many of us have said, I will start doing the following with my life as soon as I lose X amount of weight. So your life is always on hold until you become slim.
Mhm. I
This
know,
it's
so
got to
much
stop.
pain, isn't
Yeah.
there? So much pain and
Yeah.
suffering. I spent years, because it's like I could not accept myself
Yeah.
for not looking the way I was told that I needed
That you
to look.
should. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you. I think, and also in life generally, the bigger you are, the smaller your life, right? Because you play small. You want to become invisible. So I think I'm just saying this because I understand the drive and the 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 need to do anything to make it go away, to feel part of the world. So yeah, you will turn to these medications. Some of us beg physicians and surgeons to cut out our parts of our intestines so that we can lose weight. Like that's insane. That's absolutely insane. We go
Mhm.
under the knife to look a certain way. We let plastic surgeons cut into us and make us look different so that
Mhm.
we can fit in. That's
Mhm.
insane.
Mhm.
It's not acceptable.
I couldn't put it or speak to it more. The problem is we're set up in the environment that we live in, these obesogenic environment where there's food on every street corner,
Yeah.
and these natural proclivities that we have to be able to find food, source food, we don't need it. But some of us are so well attuned to it. Some of us were given these gifts, these hunter-gathering gifts,
Yeah.
to be able to find food, to sniff it out, to know where that patch of blackberries or whatever it is in the forest was lurking. Because on an evolutionary basis, the human species needed these abilities amongst it to survive. We needed to have these traits. That's why some of us are given these traits, because it perpetuates human beingness. Others haven't got that because it wasn't necessary, but they have other gifts and talents and stuff that we don't have. But
Right.
having this susceptibility, this type of brain that's susceptible to addiction and to the overstimulation,
Hmm.
overexcitability around
Hmm.
food, is, some of us have it and others
Right.
don't.
Right.
And those who have it, alongside it being actually, you come to view it as being a huge gift. There are ways to learn to manage it, to live alongside having this gift,
Right.
and to create, just an extraordinary life
Yeah.
within that. And honestly, I think that's what you and I do in terms of our coaching practices. That's how we help people. That's what we look to do.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, this gift that you speak of is just in the wrong era.
We'd be highly prized, wouldn't we, in ancestral times, wouldn't
You
we?
know it.
Call on Cheryl. I'm hungry. Call on Cheryl. She'll come
Yeah,
find
call
food.
Cheryl. She knows where the bushes are. Oh my God.
What
Well,
fun.
I think, I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say about, these GLP-1 drugs. I mean, like I said, I don't want to bash the heck out of them because they do serve a purpose, but I just think that they're not for everyone, and that I don't think that it should be the first thing to turn to.
I love that. I think I would like to close by saying, don't be peer pressured. Don't be fooled by what you see, what friends are telling you, oh, this is wonderful and all the rest of it, because it might not be the best choice for you if what you're up against is
Right,
disease of addiction to sugar and ultra processed food. Get some
right,
education, get some knowledge, get some
right.
tips and tricks and instruction on how to harness your brain and your natural ability
Yep.
to actually deal with this problem and learn how to live alongside it. There are plenty of people who have a chronic disease who have a full and, loving and huge life living alongside this disease,
Hmm.
the
Absolutely.
chronic
Yeah.
diseases as well. It's
Yeah.
entirely possible, entirely
Yeah.
possible.
And I think too, when you are watching infomercials or interviews and it's all positive and it's all glowing reviews, follow the money. Who is being interviewed? Who is being interviewed? What is their background? Look into it, and you will find oftentimes that there's a connection to the manufacturer of these particular products. So do your
It's
homework.
fun, isn't it? And I
Yeah.
think I ought to say that neither Cheryl and I are being sponsored by any
By
weight
anybody.
and definitely not by any weight loss drug manufacturer. In fact, I'm expecting a writ to
Yeah.
land on my door shortly.
Lawyers
I know. Dreading the phone ringing. But
that
actually, thank
serve
you so
papers.
much. I know that was a great conversation. Thank you
It
so
was.
much. I really
Oh,
enjoyed
thank
it.
you. Thank you. I did too. All right. So I'm sure we'll find something else to talk about the next time we get together.
Take
Okay.
care, and
Well,
I'll see you soon.
you bet.